Right, so take a seat. So the idea of this event is really that you get value from it. I have put together with questions for Dr. Pavol based on what I think you might want to know. Okay, so not things that I want to know, what I believe that you as startup people based in Slovakia would want to know at that stage where you are. But of course, I don't know any of you personally. I can see 1, 2, 3. I mean, hi. There's about 3 or 4 friends there I can see. So it's a really good idea if you can use the Slido to put forward your questions. If you have a special question on your heart and you don't know how to explain it in English, feel free also, we can switch, I'm sure, to Slovak now and again if the need, if you have something that you really want to find out and share. So, you may be thinking, what's this strange Englishman doing on the stage here? I'm Daniel Shaw, I live in Slovakia, I run 2 clinics. It's called Smile Clinic in Slovakia. So I had a clinic in Bratislava, I had a clinic in Piešťany. They are dental clinics. What's very special about these dental clinics is that 90% of our patients are from England, not from Slovakia. So patients fly to Slovakia for treatment and they fly out in the evening. So I've been doing this for about 10 years. I met about 4 years into my company. I started to work with Rastri Kulik and Vladimir Hruda from Google. And together we set up something which we call today the Global Clinic Rating, which is a system to hopefully rate the quality of hospitals and clinics around the world. We rate companies, banks, schools, girlfriends, restaurants, holiday destinations on the internet, but hospitals and clinics we don't have a fair and transparent rating for. So that's something that we've been trying to solve for the past 5 years. It's a hard battle, and that's one thing we'll be talking about today, because healthcare is such a fantastic area in the startup community. So many ideas, but sometimes we as people on the ground see so little progress. If you go to the doctors regularly here in Slovakia, you may feel that it hasn't changed since you were in school. You know, the past 20 years, the doctor experience here, at least in public clinics and hospitals and private and smaller practices, is very similar as what it was. And then you can expect that the treatment outcomes are very similar as what they were 20 years unfortunately ago. But that's not putting Slovakia down. If through our travels around the world, and I'm sure Pavol will also confirm that, the state of healthcare growth and quality in treatment outcomes is very similar. It's not growing at the rate it should be, and that's why we are encouraging more and more startups with ideas to come forward and change this Jurassic Park of startup arenas. Right, if I do speak too fast or too, how do I say, wordy, that's what we're saying in English, please feel free to check me on that. Right, Dr. Pavol Čekan, is that the right way to pronounce it? Yes. Thank you, Dr. Pavol. So, introduction. He's a well-known Slovak health tech start-upper, and he's graciously agreed to join us for this interview to share his knowledge and experience as an entrepreneur. I found out that Pavol comes from Prešov, which I like Prešov and the Východ very much. That's why I also started. He's also a musician, plays folk music, so it's something that we also have in common. I play a lot of Celtic folk music, and that's how I started in Prešov too. So, but this topic is about healthcare. So before we go into music and fun things like that, let's get back to the medicine, okay? Can you, right at the beginning, just tell me a little bit about your background in health tech?
So I am a scientist, or used to be a scientist for many years. I studied from protein biochemistry through nucleic acid chemistry, molecular pathology, up to molecular oncology, from Iceland to Seattle, New York, and Washington. So I spent 20 years basically in hardcore basic science. And then I realized that academia is a nice place to be, but it's not challenging enough. And I just dreamt about fact that I could just bring something to people much faster and could be more influential by developing products. But there is one thing that I want to say about MultiplexDX, our biotech company, that we have kind of two phases. We are divided in commercial activity and also in R&D. And then R&D is something that maybe interests you more because that's about the development of new, novel, personalized, multiplex diagnostic tests for oncology patients. But then we also have this biotech activity, which is commercial activity, which interests actually our investors standing right there, because they want to see numbers. We are trying to be in both worlds, and in both worlds where we are the pioneers.
That's a hard thing to do, to be in those both worlds.
It's actually interesting and challenging at the same time. I think it's good to have combination of two things. We did it, in our case, it's very logic, right? So, of course, the biggest goal we have is a novel diagnostic test, which easily say will eliminate misdiagnosis, right? When you get a cancer, there is a really high probability that you can be misdiagnosed. So basically diagnostics provide doctors with false positive or false negative results. And we want to change this by combining two quantitative technologies. So first we visualize tissue, we quantify biomarkers, and then the same biomarkers can be quantified by another RNA sequence. And I don't want to go very deep into details, but the point is that if you have two quantifications and they cross-validate each other, they basically eliminate false positive, false negative results. But to develop and then validate such diagnostic tests, it's lengthy and it's costly. So it costs a lot of money depending on the complexity of such diagnostic tests. So logically, because this test is based on technologies, then you can basically think about what are those technologies based on, and then you figure out that there are multiple sub-products that you can actually commercialize very quickly. In our case, again, apology if it's too scientific. In our case, we can synthesize synthetic DNA. And that synthetic DNA can be used in all kinds of technologies that are used for tissue visualization or RNA sequencing. And we can sell it immediately. For some of them, we have beautiful freedom to operate, so they are not IP protected. And for some of the technologies, we have our own IP or even trade secret. So that's why we divided this into two main things within MultiplexDX. So biotech and then also health.
Alright, okay. Would you mind if I took it right back to, so you were brought up in Prešov, and then once went to Iceland. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You know, my past is actually meeting in this room because I know Iveta. She's also from Prešov. It's a huge coincidence, and she actually borrowed me money to leave Slovakia in 1997, 1998. And first I actually went to London. So I used to live in the United Kingdom, and then I gave money back. so I'm a good friend. And when I lived in London, of course I wanted to study in university. I always thought that could be my way, you know, to get educated and then do something great in my life. But 97, 98, you know, being Slovak was not the big advantage. Politely said, and it required work permit, and also it required a lot of money that I would need to pay for a school. So of course I visited Oxford. It was a dream coming through, you know, to study in such beautiful place, especially for me as a chemist. But I realized immediately that this is no way to go. So I met a crazy Czech guy who lived in Iceland and told me, you know, Iceland is a nice country, you can come and you can study at university, it's not expensive, etc., etc. So, you know, I packed my bags and I went to Iceland, where I spent another 10 years.
Right, okay. And then from there, academically, you went to the USA to continue studies?
Yes, yes. Iceland is a big part of my life. Iceland influenced me maybe the most because I grew up there. Iceland is my second home, basically, because a lot of things that are in my mind, or a lot of things that influence my responses come from Icelandic culture. So, for example, I'm very honest, very, very honest. I don't lie. And second, you know, I like quick changes. I'm not afraid to change things. Iceland is very open society. You know, you can see it on their arts or music. They actually like to do modern things. And it is because it is in their nature. And I'm coming to the point. So, of course, when I came to Iceland, University of Iceland was not better than Convenience University in Bratislava. The quality of that university was actually equally, let's say, equally good. Okay. But because their economy was actually boosting because of free energy, thermal energy, and then banking sector was growing incredibly. They were like blowing the bubble. Somehow they didn't forget about their science and then research and development, and they invested money into university. And in very few years, I saw the effect of good financing, good thinking, and then good investment. Basically, they brought a big biotech company, Decode, which was an American company, to Iceland, and that created a lot of jobs, and it pushed actually even the university to get better. So from that bad university, actually, university changed to really high quality university, and it even influenced my PhD. So when I finished PhD in Iceland, I finished it with 20 really high ranked publications, and that opened basically all doors I knocked on after my PhD. So I got like 10 offers for postdoctoral position, and I could choose from the best offers, from the best institutions, best excellent teams around the world. And I was able to choose Rockefeller University in New York, which is a dream for anybody who wants to be involved in biomedical research.
Okay, fantastic.
So this is something that I wish to Slovakia, because Slovakia is also small, and the things can be changed very quickly. So I see enormous potential that story that I lived during the time can be repeated here.
Certainly in healthcare there's so much need for honesty, for rapid change, and for the backing of the institutions to make that change happen with funding. I hope you can bring that more and more here, not only here, but of course to other countries as well. And then, so after Rockefeller, you continued studies. And was this where was the beginning of your idea for MultiplexDX?
It actually started at Rockefeller University. It was the place where, you know, I saw like that was the highest quality of research I could see. And it's not surprising because, you know, that small place, Rockefeller University, and then Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, which is among 3 best cancer centers in the world, and then Columbia Hospital. You know, I could meet about 40 Nobel Prize holders in that small area of Upper East Side, New York. And that means that, you know, if I wanted to study any problem of liver, I could go just to Charles Rice, who is Nobel Prize for liver diseases. or if I wanted to talk about any other problems, I could go straight to the office of Nobel Prize, who is actually the leader and pioneer of this particular biomedical research. And since I changed the field, coming from nucleic acid chemistry to molecular pathology, I realized that the strongest thing I have is technologies. So I could develop technologies much quicker in biomedical research than anybody else, just because I came from chemistry, biochemistry, etc. And when I realized that, I started to do that. So I was able to get a lot of human tissues and work on them and then visualize them under the most modern microscopes. And we were able to pump millions of dollars into projects that that you cannot even imagine. So we did 3D visualization of biopsies that are not even done, not even in research places. I'm not talking about hospitals. We were able to do that. So if you remember anything about CSI, where the doctors are looking within the tissues and you think it's a future, we already did that at Rockefeller University. So it was a place where I could dream. I fly basically, and yeah, it was a very, very great place to be at. But then I moved to National Cancer Institute in Bethesda, Washington, which is a great place from a different perspective. National Cancer Institute, the center of National Cancer Institute is a huge hospital, which is open for basically any experimental drug, experimental therapy, open for patients. So there are no limitations, no restrictions from insurance company or government. So basically, you can test on the patients whatever. And that yeah. So I mean, of course, they must agree. But okay, I had some friends from pathology. They, for example, work with people, but dead people. So sometimes they tell me stories. But I worked with living humans. But what was really the greatest thing about that place, that if you ever heard about any new treatment, like in cancer, we used viruses, combination of two viruses. That the first time they were one virus actually activated immune system that killed cancer cells, and another coming from flu actually killed cancer cell itself, and combination of these two actually cured patient that was just dying and had no future. That is coming from National Cancer Institute, and I could see it. I had like friends, doctors that could use any combination of two chemotherapies on patients, and they saw incredible results. So then there was the place where I saw like hope, basically, that the research, basic research, goes immediately to applied research, and it has immediate influence on patients. So that changed me too, and that was exactly the place where I decided, okay, enough is enough of basic research. I want to do this. I want to have my own team, my own company, and do something, for people and much faster. And that time I thought, okay, what about Slovakia, right? It's my home country. I can bring my knowledge, my expertise. And secondly, it's a small country. So any change can be forced maybe quicker than in the United States. United States is big, changing something in healthcare is an enormous job to do. In Slovakia, if you know right people, maybe you can influence changing of law, blah, 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 blah. Of course, I was a dreamer. But I tried to be optimistic, and I met some people, some investors that told me, okay, Slovakia is changing, everything is getting better. People want to invest in biotech, medtech, health tech, so let's try it. Let's try it. And then I thought, okay, maybe this is my time. I know biotech does not exist. I know health tech, it's in diapers, right?
Yeah.
So let's be the pioneer. Maybe that's even better challenge than just bringing something to people. Being the pioneer, being somebody who can create new industry, new way of thinking. So here I am.
How long ago was it since you?
We started company 2016, but it was in the United States. And then I moved to Slovakia 2017, so it's going to be 2 years in summer.
Okay, so still quite recent.
Yes.
And then putting the team together, how did you get? I'm sure the team wasn't put together in the US and you convinced them all to leave and come to Slovakia.
So when we founded the company, we were actually only two of us. Vladimir Wolf, he used to be a scientist himself, but he transitioned more into business. So we started only two of us in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and we just rented 3 labs and 1 office, and basically we were more interested in biotech first, to synthesize small sub-products and sell, and convince investors that we have running commercial model, and then we can create also some numbers. And after that stage, we realized we need bigger team. So we entered another fundraising stage with Crowdberry. Guys, come on, say hi.
Hi. It was a tough one.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but let's not talk about how tough it was, but let's talk how successful it was. Because even it was a really difficult one, we did something. To be more precise, that round was exactly 1.13 million euros. Correct?
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the highest ticket that biotech or medtech company has ever received from investors in Slovakia. But what is even more and more encouraging for others is that we have about 90 investors, Misha? 90 investors. And if you want to have 90 investors, 90 small investors, that means that you probably spoke to hundreds, right? To butchers and to whatever IT guys and then financial gurus and whatever people. I didn't speak to all of them, but Misha spoke to all of them. And even though it took really long, the story is beautiful regarding the fact that we convinced so many, and we had to speak about innovations in diagnostics, innovations even in how to establish a biotech startup in Slovakia. And we have many backers, and what I think will happen is that those backers speak to us, to others, and I think we are creating something that we probably don't know much about right now, but it will become unique later. And I'm just bridging to other questions of yours, but because novel diagnostics and health tech is a great place to be at, because you can develop something and bring to the market, bring to the people, and you can influence something great. You have enormously great social impact. And in healthcare system, we are changing one phenomenon, and that is that patient is heavily involved in getting better care. And starting to getting better care, you have to start with better diagnostics. So basically, you have to be the pushing person to actually require better diagnostics. And that actually creates completely new model for diagnostic company. Because more people know about you, more people require better diagnostics, more personalized, more precise, and then more people speak about this, and that's how you push your product to the people much faster, and that is really changing in health tech, and I'm very grateful about this because every one of us can actually fight for better healthcare.
Super. It's like, Really, I'd like to know, just go back a little bit to getting the funding together. So there was a big round for the first round. And how are the roadblocks? You said you did a lot of meeting people, talking. Can you give the guys some idea of what it actually takes to get that amount of funding from that amount of small investors?
Okay, so I think the biggest challenge that I had to face during fundraising stage was that I'm a scientist.
Okay.
So that means that many things that I understand, I somehow, not intentionally, expect others to understand. But it's completely wrong approach. So beginning was harder for Michal to work with me because I was not able to convince investors because they didn't understand what I was talking about. So the biggest challenge was really to explain them our innovation. And then I realized it's not only important for us, actually it's important for whole science field to actually explain to people, to normal people, how innovation can change their lives. But not only in your mobile or in your car, but also in the doctor's office. It's very important to understand that also those innovations are very essential and important to us. And that we can actually do better. And even in Slovakia, we can do better. We have innovative people, and we have good ideas within healthcare and within even diagnostics field where we are. So that was the biggest challenge I had to get rid of this scientific talk and go much closer to people.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, there were other drawbacks. For example, if I could do something differently today, then one thing would be I would start with fundraising much earlier. That was the first time when we really raised money for more than a year, and actually it's normal. It's not, but yeah, it took a year, but this is actually quite normal because even with venture capital, it could take that much.
So it's just so that I tried to clarify for the audience that so they're aware that it does often take that long.
Yes. Yeah. So what then and it's a challenge, but it's also a great test for you. It was a great test for me to be patient and to believe that it's going to work in the end of the day, and to believe that my idea deserves to be funded, my innovation, my company deserves to be funded. So that was a big transformation of myself too, and and the third thing that I would do differently, I would actually try to find successful people, successful in those fundraising stages, and I would just talk to them. I would ask for advice. I was always shy and afraid to ask, and that I would do differently because I would probably learn the same thing I'm telling you today, and that would give me bigger courage and more patience. And maybe we would be quicker.
And then, so it's not only you in your company. You've got a team. How big is your team at the moment?
Yeah. So that's the greatest question because I'm so proud of the fact that our team has expanded, significantly expanded. So we are now about 10 people on payroll, and then some external that are helping us. Now we even have American employee, which I'm also proud of. So we are attractive for foreigners, not only for Slovaks. And then we have young scientists. We have even one old guy that came back from retirement because we were so exciting for him. So we have still, as I said before, we have this commercial activity, synthesizing oligonucleotides, synthetic DNAs. That's where we now invest the most energy. And then we also have people that work on R&D, and then they are starting to do more development of those diagnostic technologies. So and then we have Peter Kilian, who is commercial, he's COO, Chief Operational Officer, so he oversees all these operational things. I am CEO, so I oversee all these abnormal things like visions and what should we do, and then we have investors, that they are responsible for getting data and numbers from us and reports. And they are really good at it. We are the bottleneck, so be ready for it. Once you get money from the investors, then they will be after you. You have to provide. But that's good, because their questions and their requests actually push you further. So another drawback of health tech is that we scientists, we love to be perfect. We love our products to be perfect. And it's not always the most important thing. So there is a big change that every scientist in health tech has to undergo, and it is that you have to start to think for profit. And thinking for profit is very different from getting the best scientific publication. It's very, very, very different thinking. But thinking for profit also means that you are pushing yourself to get your product the fastest way to the customer, to the market, to your client. Or in other words, is that you always think about lowest hanging fruit. I'm giving you all these beautiful investor words, lowest hanging fruit, profitable. So faster you learn, quicker you will satisfy your investors.
I imagine that it must have been like a difficult switch in mindset to go from a world where you're like Merlin. You can mix up and do all the experiments what you like, and you don't have to worry about money. And then to switch into an area where you really do have to think about money and think for profit, profit first. In a way, and I'm not saying whether if you have investors, I guess you're also thinking profit first with product. So, how difficult was that? A difficult switch in mindset from the academics, the Merlin, the ability to do what you want, and then to the financial sector?
It was very much difficult. If anybody knows Startup Award, the competition, it's called Future Nano. I'm famous in that competition to be the most complaining person ever in the history of the competition, because I complained how a scientist like me can do 3 minutes pitch, right? I'm used to 45 minutes presentation, and with the slides where I have my key points, and a lot of questions, and suddenly they ask for 3 minutes, and how can I say about my innovation in 3 minutes? Believe me, it's possible. It's possible, and it was the greatest transformation I ever went through, and that actually changed me into a businessman. And I can tell you, I transformed because I have already given a talk at the Economy University. So me as a scientist, I'm proud of the fact that I give talks to economy students, and we talk about business model and marketing strategy and commercial strategy and etc. So yeah, it was hard, but on the other hand, and now I just bring another ingredient into it. Somehow, somewhat, in the end, it was very natural. So how much you are afraid of the transformation, it comes very natural in the end. And in my case, it helped that I am a musician. Okay. I used to be a musician. And more than musician, I used to be leading violin or opera singer. So I'm actually stage guy. I never used that in my scientific life. But now in my in startup world and even as being as a CEO, you know, I can use that skill. I'm not afraid to talk. I'm not afraid to present. I'm not afraid to approach investors, and that skill helped me a lot. So that means that transformation was more natural to me in the end, and of course I was afraid of it. Of course I complained. I was frustrated. You know, why do I need to speak up? Why do I need to think about money? Why do I need to talk about business model all the time? But now I love it. Now I love to present our business model. I love to present our commercialization strategy, and I learn every day something new.
Who's handling now for you? Is it you that's handling the commercial presentation side of the project, or you've already hired somebody to help you with that?
It depends, you know.
Okay.
We work with external company regarding marketing, marketing strategies. But honestly, whatever they say, I already know. So this is the great thing about being a founder, and if you think about your product, about your innovation, you really know what the client, who is the client, you know to whom you should sell. But it's always good to have help, and it's always good to have a confirmation that this is exactly the right way. And or another thing, another layer, that sometimes I think about 10 strategies, and it's good to have external advice to kind of focus on only 3 strategies. Regarding commercialization, in health tech, commercialization is very straightforward. You know, regarding diagnostic tests, first step is to convince key opinion leaders, so basically oncologists or other influential people in oncology, that your innovation is real innovation. Okay. Then the second thing is you have to validate your test. So you need to work on validation using cohorts of thousands of tissues or samples, and then you have certification stage, and then basically once you get certificate, you enter the market. So it's really straightforward. That's the gold standard commercialization strategy in diagnostic field, or even in healthcare, or even with the devices. But we are entering a new era, which is great, which I love about this. Regarding diagnostics, you don't really need to go this traditional route, that you have to talk to oncologists, you have to do huge validations. You actually, in diagnostic field, you actually can try something else, because you also need to get early diagnosis, so you can actually go straight to the patients. I mean, okay, they might agree, they might disagree, or a market can decide whether you are good or not. You know, you start to sell, if it doesn't work, people will stop buying. You know, social media is very strong today. If your test is crap, you know, many people will learn it in 10 minutes. But if your test is great, then you can go to the patients very quickly. And I love about this. I love about this change. And I foresee, and even I can see startups around us that will go this way. So patients will be involved in early diagnosis much more than decades before.
Like, and it's a side note with Christina. We also we're working on a startup that will create diagnostic centers directly for the patients, self-pay. But we did find it very hard to convince the second generation. The early generation, which are here, they're very much interested in knowing exactly where they stand on their health levels today. But second generation is in patients who are dealing with cancer, oncology cases, and yours are more, you know, second generation, third generation patients. So do you have a problem convincing them at all, or?
Yes.
For this early stage diagnosis, or because I can imagine it's quite easy once they get to late stage. when it's, you know, they're diagnosed and whatever, but early stage, how would you approach that?
Yeah. So we are going to this maybe the most difficult topic, right? Healthcare system in Slovakia. So there are many positives and many negatives about Slovak healthcare system. So one very negative thing, what you know, because you are from Western Europe, and I know because I used to live there, is that the center of healthcare system is always the patient. Always. In our country, the patient is centered only in mouth of Minister of Health, but the reality is completely different. And United States or UK or Scandinavia, they really mean it. Because if they PR about what is the patient need, then they know they can get more money. Because politician is a patient, and then a rich person can be a patient, and even you can be a patient, and that's why you want to hear what can be the solution for the problem. Because the problem will somewhere, somehow will reach you. So here, we do not do much marketing about the patients, not even about surviving patients, right? So people don't really know what innovation, new diagnostic, new medical approach can do to them. So we have to actually do something in Slovakia which normal startup doesn't do, or your startup doesn't do. We have to do marketing. We have to do health marketing. And we should not be doing this. Actually, Minister of Health, government, politicians, they should be doing this. But unfortunately, that's the case, and we have to force it. So we have to actually explain people that early you detect anything, high blood pressure, faster the treatment can be, and less painful and more effective. So that's the point. You know, today one campaign started. Campaign that will talk to our society about innovations in healthcare system. That innovations in health tech are more important than new bed or new parking spot in front of hospital. And it is really true. Can you imagine that a guy who worked for commercial TV, Patrick Herman, a guy he has nothing to do with healthcare system. The only problem is that his dad died because of colon cancer, is pushing the first prospective validation of one diagnostic test. Can you imagine? Commercial guy from Markiza TV. So this is actually the problem, right? So completely different people are thinking about the changes that actually should be forced by oncologists, by scientists, by Minister of Health, Minister of Education. So this is our biggest problem with first, second, third, or fourth generation of patients, or different stages of the disease. But good thing is that we are changing, the society is changing, and all these innovative ways are also coming to Slovakia, so we should not be afraid. And I always, everywhere I go and everywhere I speak to ambitious young people, I always say the same thing. If you want to change healthcare system, be very provocative patient. Provocative and willing patient. So you want better diagnosis, you want better treatment. And once we start all doing this, then they have absolutely no other way than just pump more money into healthcare system and just improve it.
I'm going to steal the stage for a little bit. I've got another question. Just for your project, and also for the future of like early stage diagnostics, would you sway, if you had the choice, if you could push, would you sway towards self-pay diagnosis, or you would go to it being provided, your services provided by public health?
Combination.
Combination always.
Combination. So even in our business model, we of course, you know, if you want to enter market quicker, then you go for self-pay.
Yeah.
I give you one example. The most precise diagnostics in the world at the moment, beside us, is OncotypeDX. OncotypeDX is a product of company Genomic Health. That company makes, or actually their revenue is about $400 million annually. And that comes from 120,000 OncotypeDX tests annually. So it's not a small number. 95% of those tests are out of pocket. So you can see that it's changing rapidly. So people are actually willing to pay. And that test costs $4,000. So it's not, you know, it's not that cheap, but if you want to know more about your disease, if you really want to know, or you want to get the best diagnostic so you can be treated the best way, you know, money is the smallest issue that you have. You know, where you fight cancer, you don't think about your savings. You think about another day, so you can see your friends, your family, your parents, your colleagues, whatever. So money is the least issue. So, and that's why it also brings to us a burden, because we have to be, in that sense, we have to be very honest to the patients. We cannot release anything, right? We have to really release something that which we believe is helping them. But again, it's changing, and we don't need to be afraid to develop and bring any diagnostic test to the market which will be paid by people, by their own money.
Okay. Right then, guys, should we try some of your questions? If you do have any questions, feel free to add them. Let's go for these top four. Can you able to read them from there? Or do you want me to turn the screen?
What's your long-term vision for both MultiplexDX and also health startup scene in Slovakia?
I'm very proud that we became a member of Oslo Cancer Cluster. That's our latest breakthrough. Oslo Cancer Cluster is based on 90 members, and those members are the giant pharma companies and best diagnostic companies in the world, and some cancer institutions, and Norwegian government pumps this cluster with a lot of money. And that represents the whole value chain in oncology. And that value chain actually helps each of you. If you are sick and they don't know what to do, Oslo Cancer Cluster is your solution. So basically, Oslo Cancer Cluster can bring you the best experimental therapy that is available. That's my vision. This is exactly my vision. I'm glad because we had to go through 2 interviews, really difficult interviews. We had to convince them that we are innovative, that our innovation can help, that their value chain in oncology, and this is exactly what is my vision. My vision is that MultiplexDX is going to be a leader in oncology in Slovakia, and leader, or the MultiplexDX will not only bring diagnostic tests to the market, but will create such cluster, or we can call it biomedical platforms, where we can by controlled way bring experimental treatment to the people. So it has a lot of different stages. You know, you first have to build a biotech cluster, and then the biotech cluster needs to collaborate with basic and applied science, and that whole thing needs to collaborate with clinics, etc., etc. So we have a huge way in front of us, but that would be my dream, not only vision, but dream that we can transform, we can give patients alternative. And if we have progressive government, then they don't want us to be an alternative. They want us to be the point, the main thing in oncology.
Okay.
So, is it necessary to have 20 years experience university-based research to do business in science?
Wow. it helps. It helps, but it's not necessary. Okay. I think if I could do something differently today, I would start startup 10 years ago, earlier. Because there were some paths in my scientific life which were not necessary, which I could skip and I could go. But unfortunately, I think it helps a lot if you know about science and you know about innovation, or I say differently, that you are the father of the innovation. It really helps. But there are, of course, other startups and other people that were self-made, and my head down for them. You know, that some people are just natural talent, and they can actually figure out something very quickly without scientific knowledge and help. I have a new IP for new medical product. I want to know, is there any organization I can contact for logistic, mentor my project like design, testing, marketing?
I think we need to think locally.
This is something that is missing in Slovakia, and it's really pity because a lot of investments went to this. We lack proper incubator and accelerator for biotech and medtech. That's the real problem. You know, Minister of Health is thinking about something like this. They have I don't know, 500,000 or 600,000 euros that they would like to invest into new accelerator, etc. However, there are also some consulting companies, and there is one which I think for that guy could be the answer. Neology, now is called Civita. They have the experts, IP experts, and then Civita especially. They actually their expertise is also in biotech. So Civita or Neology would be actually good place to go. All right. How is Watson Health different from you? Very different from us. Super different because it's a software. Software that is built on published clinical data, while we create our own data. And since we know that a lot of clinical data comes from 10, 20 years ago, where companies and institutions didn't have technologies like genetic testing and etc., we all know that those clinical data is imprecise at the moment. And that's why this is the biggest drawback of Watson, that it's actually not as precise as we believed all when it came to the market.
Do you submit your data anywhere, or do you keep it in-house, your results at the moment?
We keep it in-house, but to be really honest, we went through like 85 patient samples, so we don't have as impressive data to make or to draw any big conclusions. What is the product of your company and what is your target customer group?
I think that's clear from what you said before.
Is the result of testing based on technology only, or is there a human input necessary to get the proper result? Actually, this is a really good question. Actually, I like this question because somebody who asked that is thinking a little bit further to the future. As I mentioned in the beginning, the biggest problem in diagnostics is that there is a misdiagnosis. And misdiagnosis does not only come from technology errors, but actually also comes from human errors. And human errors can be easily somehow replaced or solved by artificial intelligence. Because artificial intelligence has one advantage over people, and that means that artificial intelligence doesn't ring in the evening before before looking at the slides, and we have to think about this very deeply, and we think about this every day, because since we are using microscopes, and we need to automate microscopes and we need to automate image analysis, then artificial intelligence is just a logic status forward. So yes, I actually, in that sense, 2 years ago I draw a picture which I keep for myself as a motivation. I draw a picture of one room where there are stations, microscope, sequencing machine, laser microdissection, and some robotics in between, where you can just come with a sample. Just there is small window, so that the whole room is closed, and you push this slide with your tissue to that window, and then it goes through the stages, blah 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 blah, and in the end there is a huge screen, and it will tell you, okay, these are the data, those are the biomarkers, this is the barcode for that particular cancer, and this is the proposition for oncologists how the patient should be treated. And that's how I envision it in the future. And I think that that vision without artificial intelligence, it would not be proper, would not be full.
I think that's it for the questions on there. Right. Is there anything, Pavol, that you'd like to add? You know, I've given him papers and papers. This is the list of questions that we put together, but you've done fabulously that you managed to cover, condense them and put them all together. Is there something that you'd like to share with the audience here before we finish up?
Yes. I would like to encourage you to start biotech and health tech startups. This is something that Slovakia really needs, and it will help Slovakia a lot. We have maybe 5 biotech startups in Bratislava, and just 45 minutes drive south in Vienna you have 600. Yes. So I mean, Michal knows that ecosystem quite well because he worked there, and that would be incredible if we could at least have like 100 in Slovakia, because startups, biotech, health tech, medtech startups have one incredible thing, an important thing for healthcare system. They are the bridge between basic and applied research. Biotech, those startups are filled by people that are not afraid to push knowledge from basic research to the practice. And that is important if you want to bring innovations to the patient. Fast way. So don't be afraid. It doesn't require 20 years of scientific education. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid if you don't understand. It doesn't matter. The motivation is patient. The motivation is that you make somebody's life better. So please join us. Please go for medtech startups. Please.
Right. Well, I think that's a great way to end the interview. Give us a round of applause.